So let's say I'm working on this one and I'm going to inspect it and see if I can hold it such that it can be seen. You'll notice this finger right here is slightly twisted. It is out of this being in the same plane with the fingerboard. All I'll do is take and I'll work on this in more detail off camera. I'm going to grasp it with my needle nose pliers and begin lifting it gently and squeezing down on it to work that little twist out. Getting a little closer. I'll continue to work on it till I perfect it off camera because I don't want to take that much time. The next thing I'll do is take the needle nose pliers to both fingers and bend them down, just rotate them gently, to improve the tension of the finger on the board, on the drum. Another common hidden problem that's very, very difficult to diagnose, but has the same symptoms. Works sometimes, doesn't work other times. Reverse unit buzzes, hums, doesn't do anything else. Works beautifully for 2 days and then it simply stops. Works beautifully for 2 minutes and then it stops again until I shake it and it starts up again. I know this seems like such a small thing, but I have found it over and over and over, even in my own trains, and it is probably one of the first things I look at are these fingerboards on anybody's rebuild. In addition to all that, of course, I'm looking for holes in the fingers. I was getting really close right there, but I'll look for the holes in the fingers and whether or not they will rotate on these grommets right here. And that's kind of tedious. You need to grab them and just shake them a little bit to see if they're firm or if they can rotate just a bit. I've noticed that some of the reproduction fingerboards have more of a tendency to rotate than these vintage ones, because you'll notice on these vintage ones there's a slot in the fingerboard. Let me focus down a little bit. There's a slot on the back side of these fingerboards in which this material that the finger's made out of, this band, wraps around and fits in that slot. Well, that's going to prevent and help mitigate that issue that the finger could rotate around the drum. So that is my lecture and whatever you want to call it about these things. All I'm going to do now is reposition the fingers, thoroughly inspect them for the possible rotation on that grommet. I'm going to work on them. It takes a little bit of patience. I do this off camera to make sure that the fingers are in the same plane as the board, and then reattach them. Of course, I'm going to pull them down and put a little make sure there's more pressure on the drum. Now, for those of you, and I have had some say this, is that, Dave, what I've noticed is when I do that, I'm getting increased friction, I think, and the drum's not rotating. Fine. You can put CRC 226, as a matter of fact, on every drum I fix or every reverse unit. I put CRC 226 on the surface of the drum using a Q-tip. No need to put it on the fingertips to lubricate and apply something that not only is supposed to lubricate and clean, but also improve electrical properties. I also put it in all moving areas, which, of course, is what Mr. Barker had mentioned for many years, putting the some sort of lubricant or cleaner on the pawl here that lifts up. I make sure that all the points that move, such as right here, the pivot point for the plate, the pawl, the axle, everything, I put CRC 226 on it to provide that light lubrication. And I have yet to see one of these that doesn't work. Just be cautious of anybody that says you need a new armature because it is burned up or burned out. And I would question them to say, have you smelled it? Have you looked at it thoroughly? Does it smoke? Does it actually have some sort of charcoal material on it that shows it has been burned? Yeah, we're getting ready to wrap this one up. I've installed the lower fingerboard, pushing it through pushing the tabs through the slots. But the key is that once you've done that, once you've twisted the tabs, be sure and rotate or attempt to rotate or move the fingerboard. Make sure it's not moving or slipping at all, because if you're doing that, if that happens, there is a possibility that's when the fingers aren't making good solid contact with the drum. If that's happening, you want to tighten the tabs or twist them some more, but be careful. Twist them slowly, gently, small increments at a time until the board is sufficiently tightened to the structure, the frame, or the reverse unit. Twist it too much, you're running risk that you're going to pop the end of the board off, because that is just a fiber board and you're putting pressure on it with metal that is going to be very strong. How do we know this? Well, because I've experienced before. I popped several off simply twisting them too far, but it's kind of a touch and feel. Now, once you put the board on there, if it won't stay down, like this one, I keep pushing it down, but it won't stay, that's a good sign that you've gotten enough tension on the fingers to make solid contact. I've already lubricated this drum with CRC 226. I'm going to come back and lubricate the gear. I'm going to lubricate the pawl. I'm going to lubricate the axle. I'm going to lubricate this point right here where the plate lifts up and down. I'm going to lubricate every possible area with a small amount of CRC 226. When you tighten the tabs, my practice is to open up your needle nose pliers, one side of the plier on the tab, on each side of the tab, and push downward with the pliers in the open position. Once you notice the board has gone flat, grasp the tab and begin your twisting then. I'll do that off camera to make sure that this one is on, and then we'll run some tests.